Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Jason Lumsden, teacher and photographer. Please enjoy Jason Lumsden. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today I'm chatting with Jason Lumsden, teacher and photographer. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here.
I am excited to have you here with me this evening to chat about creativity and all of the cool things that you do with photography and creativity in your life. But before we get to all of that, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
So yeah, my name is Jason Lumsden, as she said. I go by Way Welling on the socials, and I am a photographer, first and foremost, content creator. I'm getting more into videography right now, mostly drone-based work. And yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. I'm always trying to evolve and get into different things, but it's always photography, videography based work.
How did you get into photography? Like, what was your entry point?
So I didn't get heavily into photography until I would say like 2017 is when I made the decision to kind of learn. Well, let me rewind. The decision to learn how to take a decent photograph was 2013. My wife and I honeymooned in Santorini, Greece. And I had never seen something so beautiful. And I had my iPhone 4 with me only. And I just remembered, I took some photos with that. I did as best as I could with the iPhone 4. And I couldn't print anything large because it didn't have enough information there to print something large. So that was kind of when I said, I'm never going to come somewhere this beautiful again and not be able to take a decent photograph and be able to put a print on our wall at home. So that's kind of where the idea of becoming a photographer came from. So that was 2013. It really didn't get solidified until 2015. I walked the Camino de Santiago. It's a 500-mile pilgrimage, and it starts in the south of France. Well, the route that I did starts in the south of France and ends in Santiago de Compostela. It's a 500-mile walk. I bought just this little point and shoot Fuji because I didn't want to, all you really have is what's on your back. So you have your clothes, your toiletry kit. I mean, everything for the whole entire month was on my back. So I had to have a small footprint when it came to a camera. And I just enjoyed documenting my time on that journey. And that was where it really kind of hit home that I really enjoy doing this. I want to pursue it more, learn more, get better at it. And that's kind of where it grew from there.
Nice. I love that. I love hearing kind of the origin story of creativity and bits and pieces. And now you've expanded into drone photography and videography. And I'm so curious, what is it like to take pictures with a drone?
It's pretty incredible, to be honest. One, because if you're lazy, that drone is made for you. Because you can stand in one spot and the drone does all the work. You just have to operate it with the controller. And it's very different when you're photographing with a normal camera, because in theory, if you don't have a long lens, you need to walk, you need to move. Depending on the lens that you have on your camera, you need to physically move yourself so that you can get the right angle, for different perspectives and that kind of thing. But whereas with a drone, you just fly it. you point the camera in different directions, and you can stay exactly where you are on the ground, and you don't have to move. So, but it's amazing. I've always been kind of infatuated with flight.
Mm.
Uh, I grew up in Bolingbrook, Illinois, and it was Clow Airport was literally, I could have walked there, rode my bike there, and 5 minutes away. So
Mhm.
I just always saw these small planes
Mm.
coming in and out. So I was always kind of infatuated with flight. And as soon as, I heard that you could put a camera up into the air and get kind of a bird's eye view of things, and I was in.
Yeah. I mean, so doing both like a physical camera and a drone camera, which one do you feel like sparks creativity for you, or is it in different capacities?
They both do, to be honest. They're very, very different in ways, obviously, aside from the obvious that you're in the air with one camera and you're not with the other. But um, when you're scouting, for instance, so scouting for new shots, with Instagram, it's very difficult to find new shots, new perspectives, new compositions, because there's so many people doing it nowadays. But
Mhm.
with the drone in Chicago, there was already a few people doing drone work in Chicago, but I thought that was a way that I could kind of make a name for myself.
Mm. Mhm.
Most of the classic spots with a normal camera in Chicago had been done kind of ad nauseum, and I thought this is a way to kind of separate. There are some drone shots, but it wasn't extensive. The
Yeah.
catalog, at least that I was seeing on Instagram, wasn't that extensive. So I wanted to pursue that. And then with researching and scouting, um, you can do it on Google Earth
Mm.
with drone.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah.
It's a great way to scout locations and see what things will look like from above. And whereas I guess you could do it as well from the ground now
Hmm.
with Google Earth. I haven't really tried to do that much, but I have been gravitating a lot more towards my drone than picking up my normal camera.
Hmm. Nice. Well, when you think about creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
It's funny because my good friend that I work with and I had this conversation the other day, and I told him that I don't know how creative I really am. I mean, I make a lot of things, and I tried my hand at songwriting for a while too, so that's a different side of creativity. I've always enjoyed writing. I don't fancy myself the best guitar player in the world, and it was funny because I went to record a song,
Mhm.
and the guys I was recording with, I was like, yeah, I don't really think of myself as a musician or a songwriter. And they're like, what do you think you just did? It's just funny how like the mind works, and it kind of
Yeah.
tells yourself. But to me, creativity is somebody like Jimi Hendrix, somebody
Mm.
that does something that's never been done before. I mean, the stuff he was doing on guitar, the hammer-ons, the pull-offs, it was kind of a new sound that he created with the guitar, with the electric guitar. So I guess I always do this to myself too. I kind of set myself up for like a very difficult kind of reaching a
Mm.
very high standard.
Hmm.
Um, so that might be part of the reason why I think like I'm kind of creative. But to me, that's what it means to me. Like you're doing something fresh and new, which is very, very rare, very rare.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I don't know. My wife thinks I'm crazy. If she heard me say that I'm not creative, she would probably say you're crazy. But I don't know. I just like making stuff, just coming up with ideas. Getting inspired by something, um and wanting to photograph it, and
Yeah.
or write, or with writing as well.
Hmm.
You know, like I've been inspired in the most random times. I'll be on a trip somewhere, and travel is huge for inspiration.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so Yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question as far as
Yeah.
what how I
I,
define creativity.
I mean, kind of what I'm hearing is creativity is about doing new things or sparking new ideas that haven't been done before, or doing something in a really new way that is unique to you.
Yeah, I would
Nice.
agree with that.
Yeah. And so, what is it about travel that inspires you?
It's it's the new, it's the getting out of your normal everyday routine comfort zone.
Mm,
Um, that's really what it is. And then it depends on where you're going. If it's way different than what you're used to seeing and living every day, that to
hmm
me is usually the most inspiring for some reason. It's
hmm
just, I mean, when you think about it, you know that the stuff is going on right now. We're having this conversation, but you know other countries, people are asleep right now because it's nighttime and like
Right.
just other pockets. Right now, downtown Chicago, stuff is happening. So
hmm
when I think about stuff like that, you know it's happening, but until you're there and you're experiencing it, and you start to understand they really truly live their day to day like this, which in some ways can be so much different
hmm
than how we live here. And it's
Yeah.
just, to me, it's just a breath of fresh air, getting out of your comfort zone, being in totally new surroundings where you're a little uncomfortable.
Mm,
Um, that's really it, I think, to me, is just getting out of your comfort zone and kind
hmm
of seeing everything through a different lens. I mean, you still have everything that makes you who you are, where you came from, how you were raised,
Yeah.
everything, your environment that has impacted who you've become as a human being. But it's nice to go somewhere so foreign,
hmm
which for me, it's funny because Vietnam has probably been the most foreign for me, but
hmm
I'm half Vietnamese.
Oh, all right.
So, but like going there and experiencing and living that for a few weeks, that was the most foreign to how
hmm
we live here to me.
Yeah.
Um, which was very, interesting because here I always tell people, oh, because people will ask you the question, what are you? At least when I was growing up, well, what are you? Mixed. And
Mm-hmm.
I would always say I'm Vietnamese. My mother's Vietnamese and my dad's, American. He was in the army. He went there and
hmm
they met, the whole story and everything. But then when I went there, I was like, I'm American.
Yeah,
Yeah.
different locations and context
Yeah.
kind of
It was it
inform.
was it was clear. I'm American.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, seeing as how you kind of came into photography in 2013, 15, 17, I'm curious, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
It's not that early, to be honest. But again, this goes back in what I how I answered the question before is, I don't feel like a lot of things I do are that creative. Mm, I mean, maybe in middle school, like language arts, I was a decent writer. Middle school, high
hmm
school, I was a decent writer.
hmm
I would have to say then, just
hmm
doing assignments, stuff that was assigned, and writing on topics that were assigned to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does writing like continue to show up in your life today?
To be honest, it doesn't that much anymore. There's only so much time in a day, obviously, and my focus has been, other than my regular day job, my focus has been on photography and just trying to build and grow. Uh, it's now become like a business, so trying to grow a
Yeah.
business, and so the focus has changed, unfortunately. But every now and then I'll pick up my guitar and
hmm
stuff will come out. It's great when it just pours out. I have
Yeah.
I yeah, I probably have a good 30 half, or written
That's like,
songs, half written songs. They're just on my voice notes.
yeah.
Yeah. So I actually did this was last year. last year or 2 years ago, I did a month long, and it's actually on my Instagram,
Oh.
but it was so foreign to what I normally post that I don't think the algorithm liked it very much, or maybe I'm just not that great at it. But I did a full month, September, of a song that I written. So every single
Oh,
day for the month of September, I did an original song that I had written.
that's awesome. I
So
mean,
what strange thing about that is like, and it works the same with photography. It's just the more you do it,
hmm
if it's an everyday, the easier it becomes sometimes. Not all the time. There's definitely times where you get blocked and
yeah.
you're like, whoa, where do I go from here? That kind of happens. It's happened several times throughout my journey on Instagram.
hmm
I think I started getting serious on Instagram 2017, 2018-ish.
hmm
So it's a good 6 to 7 year process to get to the point I'm at.
Yeah.
Um, but there's definitely been stretches of just, what am I doing? What do I do? What do I do
Stretches of
next?
being
And
human.
yeah,
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 I get
yeah,
it. Nice. Well, I know you have a upcoming photography book. Do you want to share
yeah,
a little bit about
yeah. It's
that
with
and kind of
Trope
what's,
Publishing.
yeah.
It's called Above and Across Chicago. So they released a Chicago book, I think a few years back,
hmm
and I don't know if they know this, but a few of my friends that I've met were featured in that book. So when I
Oh,
got contacted by them, I was beyond excited. It's just cool. It's just cool to be in something that will outlive me,
yeah.
and to be, in a group of other wildly talented photographers. There's like 15 of us total that are going to be featured in this book.
Nice.
Um, no, it's beyond a privilege, and I never anticipated something like this happening.
Yeah. How cool to be recognized in this capacity with other photographers and artists in this field and in a book. And I'm curious, you talk about kind of coming up against blocks and navigating them, but how do you navigate the more creative blocks that you come up against?
I just try to keep creating. I try to
Mm,
keep. Sometimes it's not. There's not one answer. It's not just
mhm,
not one thing that I turn to. Sometimes it's I work out. Sometimes
mm,
I'll take a nice cold shower and something will happen. There's no one thing. Sometimes I'll see a movie. Sometimes
mhm,
I'll hear a new song, or obviously harken back to travel,
mhm.
getting out of my comfort zone, getting into a different environment, completely different than how I live here. And those things all will help. But I think I saw a podcast, or I saw a meme or a post or something that resonated with me, is just as far as if you're going to consider yourself a professional in anything,
Mhm.
even when you don't want to do something, you have to do it.
Mm, mhm,
You have to do it. You have to try to do it. Maybe nothing comes, maybe it's garbage, maybe I work for an hour on an edit, and I toss it because I know it's not good enough.
mhm,
But it's just the
mhm,
reps and kind of holding yourself to a standard. And
mm.
I mean, that to me really is it. Now, that being said, there are times where it's you need to breathe.
Right.
You need to step away a little bit and maybe give it a day or two.
Yeah.
um so there's something I learned when I did the Camino, is like, you can rest,
Mhm,
you
mhm,
just don't quit. You can
mm,
always rest.
mhm.
Sometimes your rest needs to be longer than other times, but you just can't quit.
Yeah. I like that sentiment, like resting, it's okay to rest. And sometimes that rest could be months. Sometimes it's a couple hours and just continuing to keep trying or keep doing,
Yeah.
participating in it. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you want to remain healthy.
sure.
Now, that being said, I do also buy into the fact that you need to be willing to go mad for your
Oh,
art. for your art if you want to be considered someone worth talking about, which
Mm.
I don't necessarily think that I am at this point. I'm talking
And
about
yet
like
here you are. Here we
yeah.
are talking, Jason.
But you have, I mean, I'm going to sound crazy, but like the names that are coming to mind are not like my name. It's, you know, like
Yeah.
Picasso, the people that the greats. And like I'll watch, I was an athlete growing up and I played high school and a little bit of college basketball. And so
Mhm.
I love watching those guys. I love watching Kobe, you know, give interviews and Michael Jordan give interviews and talk about what it takes.
Yeah.
And I try to transfer that into this as well.
Mm.
And even artists that I look up to, and if I've listened to their podcasts and stuff, but there's no plan B for them. You know,
Mhm.
there's if you want to pursue greatness, and I know we're kind of getting off topic, but if you want to be good or considered great someday at something, there's a lot of sacrifice that needs to be made. There just
Yeah.
is. And you have to be willing to do whatever it takes in a lot of ways, as far as pushing yourself beyond your comfort zones and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think that takes a lot of creativity. You got to get creative to navigate a life like that, or a world where you are that driven.
Yeah, that's a great point because there's no blueprint.
Yeah.
So a lot of things in life you can look to some example and
Mhm.
try to follow it to a certain degree, but as far as I know, in this in photography, and there's no, you know, one path. Like even, excuse me, like with an NBA basketball player, there is kind of a blueprint. You
Sure.
know, you need to put in your 10,000 hours,
Mhm.
which if you do the math, I mean, you have to have good training and that kind of stuff. But if you do the math, and I mean, you're going to become a very good basketball player if you follow this step, this step, this step, this step. Now, some of this stuff, like genetics, obviously plays a role.
Sure.
If you're 4'5", you're
It may not be basketball
it
for
may
you.
not be basketball. It might not be. No. So, but you know, all things being equal, if you put in the work and you're doing it the right way and you're approaching it the right way, you should
Mm.
see results.
Mhm. So similar to photography, you put in the hours
Mm-hmm.
and the practice and the repetitions and
Absolutely.
the reps, you're gonna see progress and see things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It sounds cliche. You'll hear every single photographer who's somewhat good nowadays say that their first photos sucked. It's just
Well,
par
we
for the
all had to
course.
start somewhere, right?
Right.
We're allowed to be beginners, right?
Right.
I mean, I hope so.
Absolutely. 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 It helps to have some early success,
Mm,
someone, you know, saying, "Hey, this is pretty good." You know,
yeah,
that stuff helps to motivate you to want to get better. And then when you start getting noticed by peers or people that you used to look up to, that obviously is a huge motivator and helps
sure.
keep pushing you. And then at some point, when you start to feel like you are now relevant in that circle of people that you used to look up to, um, it's kind of a good feeling.
Yeah.
But I don't think art should ever be competitive. But
Mm.
in me, there's a competitive part. So when I see something shot and it's like amazing to me, and I said, "Oh man, I got to get to work."
Oh, so use it as motivation.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that art shouldn't be competitive. And yet we live in a world where it absolutely
Yeah.
is.
I
So,
mean, it is. It absolutely is, and not to mention it's political as well. There, you know,
yeah.
I'm not going to get into that, but it just is.
And for good reason to be able to express yourself through a medium in
Right.
all of the ways that you might not be able to in your regular life. So in your creative life, being
Absolutely.
able to. Yeah. Well, it's been a treat chatting with you. I have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
That's a tough question for me to answer. When I feel like I've created something good to great, it feels amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But just being creative for me is I'm in the moment completely.
Mm-hmm.
My mind's not elsewhere. I'm in the moment. So especially when I'm out shooting photos with
Yeah.
my camera or with my drone, um, I'm completely in the moment. And that's one of the rare times in my life that I am just completely in the moment, focused completely on what I'm trying to capture. So that's a pretty great feeling. And
Nice.
then I also enjoy editing because I think editing is also a big part of
Mm-hmm.
creativity because there's so many different ways you can edit a photo.
Yeah.
And I enjoy sitting down and kind of sometimes I can see it, in my
Mm-hmm.
mind's eye. I can see the end product that I'm trying to make. Sometimes I can't, and sometimes I just work through it. And I always kind of fall back to what I always normally start with my edit.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it doesn't go well. Sometimes it does. But
At least you're real about it, right?
yeah. I mean, if I could just wake up, hold my camera on the side of the bed, point click, and then have some master work, that'd be amazing. I
You
wish it was
never
that
know.
easy.
Give it a try. Who knows what people will think?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. If people want to learn where they can find your book, where they can get in touch with you, how could they go about doing that?
Yeah, again, the book is Above and Across Chicago through Trope Publishing. You can go to Trope Publishing's website. I believe it's on pre-sale. It's about to be launched fairly soon here, I think. I believe that they're going to be carrying it at the Shed Aquarium, 360 Chicago and the Hancock Tower. The Chicago Architecture Center. I don't know if I'm getting that right or not.
Okay.
And I think it's at the Museum of Contemporary Art as well. So if you're
Nice.
ever in Chicago, they should be carrying it in those 4 locations. Otherwise, you can head to the website and order it, a copy for yourself.
Nice. And how can people get in touch with you? What's your Instagram and where are your
So again,
socials?
my Instagram is at Waywelling, Waywelling. I'm on Facebook, um, Threads, Instagram. Those are my main 3 that I kind of post on and stuff. I do have other accounts, but I'm not very active on those.
Perfect. Well, I'll put those links in show notes so people have easy access. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. It's been awesome.
It's been great, Mari. It's a pleasure.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.